Hi guys, Trevor Swenson with Through the Darkness. My journey with PTSD and trauma and stressor related disorder. I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad you're with me today. I wanted to cover a topic today that is interesting to me because I've had a lot of time of self-reflection, and it's revolves around the comment, I had no idea you were walking through this, that I hear from people so often. And I have to ask myself, and you have to ask yourself, why is it that people don't know? Why is it that people don't know that you're walking through what you're walking through? And I came up with a list of things and a list of reasons that I wasn't authentic with people for the longest times. And I will tell you that having done 30 some of these episodes now, it has been extremely freeing, as it has been painful and hurtful to walk through everything again and to recover topics that I had some closure with. I know that there's purpose behind it, but I also know that it has been very freeing being authentic. Authenticity is freeing. And one of the things that I have come to realize is that we are surrounded in society with a lot of lack of authenticity. If you go on social media for any amount of time whatsoever, you will find lack of authenticity and a facade, a perfectly manicured facade for people to gawk at and look at and chase after and want. And nobody really gets down to the actual brokenness of people. And you know why? Because it's difficult and because it's painful being authentic at times. And so I want to go over a quick list of reasons that I had to overcome to become authentic. And I know you will as well as you take a look at this list or listen to this list. The first one is the stigma behind PTSD. I had no idea what to do with the diagnosis of PTSD when I got it. It was overwhelming in and of itself, and now I had a label, and I didn't know what to do with that label, and that label was awkward and it was heavy. But I will tell you that the more I read, the more I learn, the more I talk to doctors, the more I talk to people that struggle as well, there should be no stigma with being broken. All of us are jacked up. All of us are human. All of us, when you peel back the layers, will find things that are screwed up, and it is unbelievably freeing to be authentic about our brokenness. That's actually where the healing starts. Secondly, professionalism. I was in a position where the expectations professionally were extremely high for 24 years. And the last thing that I could afford to do as somebody that was a leader of people, a mentor of people, was to be completely open about my brokenness and the burden that I was carrying, because quite honestly, people don't know what to do with that, and it would have been a distraction, I would have thought at the time. But in all actuality, it really shows humanness, it shows humility, and it shows perseverance more than anything. I also felt very, very trapped. I felt trapped psychologically. I felt trapped emotionally. I felt trapped professionally. And if you think of a really, really bad relationship, it's a trapped feeling. I think of the simple example of an abusive spouse and how trapped that must feel, and what a trapping situation that is. So there was an overwhelming sense of being trapped as well. I was dealing with very real people, very damaging people, very hurtful people. And when you're battling with PTSD, you are in survival mode. And the last thing that you want to do is to have something to push you even further past just survival mode. And not talking about it and just dealing with it was my solution. That solution does not work at all. It will come to the surface. It will manifest itself. And I really believe that had I become more authentic about what I was walking through earlier, things would have turned out a lot better for me as far as my physical and mental well-being were concerned. And so that is also another one of the things. Also, expectations. People have expectations of us, and people really don't know much about PTSD, I'm finding out. In fact, my most inner circle, my closest family, my closest friends are finding out a lot about my journey with PTSD through this series, which I hope you are as well. That it's a very complex system of symptoms, of things that manifest itself. And so just the complexity itself, for one person to handle that, is a big deal. For everybody around you to try to handle that, that's an even bigger deal. So the complexity of it is also becomes very difficult. Weakness. I didn't want to be perceived as weak in any way. And what I'm finding and what I'm hearing from people, the feedback has been incredible. And what I want to give back to you, if you are struggling with unresolved trauma and PTSD and you're listening to this, the level of strength that we have to go through and to survive what we survived at the level of performance that we performed at is truly remarkable. We are warriors. Trauma survivors are warriors, and I want you to know that it is not a weak thing, it is a strength thing. You are incredibly strong to have persevered through whatever the trauma is that you endured. Yes, the road is difficult, but you persevered and you made it to this point, and you are going to make it to your healing and to your recovery as well. Lack of validation was one of my biggest fears, and unfortunately, I experienced what lack of validation feels like, and it sucks. It completely sucks. And whether it's lack of understanding on people's part or whether it's just flat out lack of validation, it all comes down to lack of validation. Ignorance or not, it's lack of validation when you are the person that is struggling with PTSD. And lack of validation is very damaging, and it forces me backwards, whereas validation pushes me forward into healing, which is another one of my driving factors in doing these videos. Is I want you to feel validated. I want you to hear what I'm walking through so you can say, I'm not alone, this is not the end, and I am going to overcome this, and I'm going to be better off because of this, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. There's also triggers. When you talk about what happened, when you talk about the subject of PTSD, one of the first questions people go to when they don't know anything about you is they want to talk about your story. And unfortunately, my story is extremely triggering to talk about specifically. And so the easiest way to not talk about my story is to not be authentic and tell people that I'm struggling. But that doesn't help me to heal. Being authentic and being able to say, this was incredibly damaging. This created a very large psychological wound over a large chunk of time for me, and it has had lasting implications for me and for my family. But in spite of that, we are going to fight, we are going to overcome, and best of all is we are going to help people that are in a similar situation, because like I said, it sucks. It really does. There's nothing awesome about PTSD and going through it, but one thing that is purpose filled is turning around and helping others that are at a different point in their journey with PTSD, and that is what I am committed to, and that is what my wife is committed to as well. Another quippy little thing is that everybody seems to have a solution for you. And as a rule of thumb, there are people that have never walked through PTSD and don't have deep unresolved trauma that they've actually aggressively addressed and found things that have been helpful and healing to them. It's much different reading a book or an article written by somebody who's a specialist on PTSD than it is hearing from somebody that is actually walking through PTSD and is able to say, this has helped me. There's a big difference. In fact, I had a comment from somebody the other day on how refreshing it was to actually hear from somebody that has PTSD that is giving little bits of advice or insight that has helped them personally. That is what people are thirsting for. And to be quite honest, that's what I want to find. That is what I am on a journey to figure out, is what will help me to heal, and how am I going to get that to other people so they have a chance of healing as well. Questions. Questions are always a very dangerous road to go down when you start being authentic with people. There are people that are very, very respectful, and to be quite honest, there are people that are very disrespectful and ignorant. And fortunately, because of my professional career, I've been equipped with thick skin and the ability to navigate difficult conversations maybe more easily than a lot of people can. But it's amazing to me what people will ask me in public when I am out in public with my dog, or if they hear that I have PTSD and they're not close to the situation. And those questions can be very, very hurtful. But I've also found that just getting through them and just answering them in a truthful and sometimes vague fashion is the best way to go. But I want to close by telling you just the simple phrase, authenticity is freeing. Be who you are. Don't be who PTSD is trying to manifest itself into being. Be authentic to yourself. Be authentic. It's freeing. It's okay that I'm jacked up right now. It's okay that I'm battling right now. It's okay that I'm struggling right now. It's okay that I'm trying to figure things out in my life right now. It's life. And this is the deck that I have been dealt. This is the hand that I am playing with, and I am bound and determined to make the absolute best out of it, regardless of how painful, regardless of the bumpy road. Right back to the title of this channel. This is simply moving through the darkness, through this chapter, into a much better, much brighter future for those of us that are struggling with unresolved trauma and stressor related disorder. I ask you to click and subscribe to meet with me for some more conversations on specific aspects of PTSD. I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you take care of yourself, and I hope you be well between now and when we talk again later. Again, this is Trevor Swenson. Thanks for being with me.